to my review of American Horror Stories, Season 2, Episode 2, titled Aura. Now, I gotta say, after watching it the second time, I really picked up on the hidden gems, Easter eggs, you could say, within this episode. And one in particular, when it came to the jewelry. Another thing I have to say is that the subtext within the writing, it was really, 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 really smart that the writer of this episode really had you not really picking up on how Jocelyn, being a black girl, a black woman, and a black girl, was being fetished. And it was definitely creepy, even from the old man at the door to her husband, and even what happened to her when she was a child. So, we're going to start first with a review, and then I'm going to give you my opinion about the episode. So, what happens is it opens up with a commercial for this, not machine, but this tool device, I would say device called Aura. And the purpose of Aura is to basically be the security and peace of mind you deserve. And now with the powerful All Vision ultrascene technology that can be seen with your eyes, but your eyes can't, you will always know who is at the door. So while this commercial is being played inside of you could say a Best Yet type of store, Jocelyn, portrayed by the brilliant actress Gabourey Sidibe, is watching it while she's looking at, the box, and the price is, you could say $200. So the man is saying, listen, the price looks steep, but it's a good bargain. It's a pretty good investment. And besides, we're not living in the times where you could basically have just your door locked and you're safe. Now, anybody could come in and slice your throat. So I would suggest you buy it. So Jasmine buys it, and we see her driving into a gated community. Now, we notice that there's a sign that basically says Carolyn Nelson, B&D Properties. And we see her pretty much carrying boxes inside a home, which means that she's just moving in and they bought the property. So her husband is a white man, and he's portrayed by the actor Max Greenfield, who used to be on the show The New Girl, which I actually liked. I watched it a couple of seasons. It was really funny, and it was on Fox. So her husband's white, and he works, you could say, in corporate America, and he just got promoted to being a supervisor, which is probably why they took the job. And Jasmine works as a jewelry artist, and she sells jewelry online, and it's custom made. And pay attention to the jewelry, because that's very important. So he wants to know, hey, why did you purchase this Aura? And she's like, you know what? I'm basically trying to keep our home safe. And he's like, listen, you don't need to get this. This is like a waste of money. So she's not really feeling what he's saying. And so it cuts to where she's like selling stuff on her store. There's one merchandise that's about $49.99. And then something that's about like $75. And so she's like, babe, my store is basically about to go online live this week. And she had already sold something. So they're basically talking about, kind of like what happened to her when she was a kid. And he's like, listen here, there are two different types of people. Those who plan their lives and the ones who serve the ones that plan their lives. Now, this is very important because it's going to come back towards the end why this quote that he said is important throughout the entirety of the show. Okay? So we get to the scene where Jaslyn is basically letting him know. Well, what happens is Jaslyn, we get a flashback from 20 years ago, which is like 2002. And Jaslyn's parents were murdered by a home invader. But Jasmine's life was spared. And this man had this rabbit mask on. And it seems like he was a white man. But it's as though he fetished her. So it's like, I'm going to keep you alive. Not so much because you're a kid, but because you're kind of like a fetish. So hopefully, I hope that he didn't harm her sexually. But I get a strange feeling that that's possibly what happened. So we basically see her selling jewelry again. And we notice that she's basically putting the Yellow Pages book on the shelf. And while she's, like dividing it, he basically puts it there and keeps it there. And we see the 3 6s. And something is off with Bryce, because that's his name. His name is Bryce. And so the husband is basically outside buzzing a bell, and he basically pretends to be a home invader. And she opens the door, and she kind of like, Bryce, what are you doing? He was like, never open the door for a home invader. So she basically screams like a white girl, that stereotypical white girl thing. So what happens is he's calling his apartment meeting for the evening, and he's basically, I'm team supervisor, which I already mentioned. So at night, Jaslyn gets like a weird feeling that somebody's at the door. So Jaslyn's like, I'm not letting you in. Like, who are you? Because she got this aura message. So she sees this person and she's like, huh? So she opens the door and she basically sees like the raccoons running across. So she's basically sitting down when she sees the old man on the phone, and he's like, we need to talk. I need to see you. Let me in. Don't be afraid. So she calls the cops, and she also calls her husband. So she tells the cops that he wanted me to let me in the house, and I've never seen him before. I didn't know what he wanted. And so there's a man named Juan that Bryce is friends with, and he's a neighbor. And so he's like, listen, I'm going to show you the video. So he basically shows that the raccoon knocked over the garbage can. And he basically shows that it didn't record the man at the door because more than likely the man wasn't there. But the cops are like, listen, the Aura app didn't record the man, but keep your doors locked and go on with your lives. But if it happens again, like they always say, let us know. So she's like, I know that man was there and I saw it and I'm not stupid and this is not some gaslighting thing. So she basically moves on with her life, kind of. And she's pretty much hearing her husband say, the police may have a point. And the husband, I don't like him. Because I feel that he's not on the same page with her. And I feel that he was only with her because of a fetish that he had probably for dark-skinned women, black women, fat women. I don't know. So he gaslights her about her childhood trauma. And he says, maybe you need to see a therapist. And he says, it could have been a dream. And she was like, yeah, possibly. But deep down inside, Jasmine doesn't believe that. So while Bryce is watching TV, while she's watching TV, Bryce mentions that, I bought the bait block that's for poisoning mice and rats. However, it must have worked on the raccoon because I don't see him. And she was like, how could you do that? He was so cute. And he was like, yeah, but he was a pest, And raccoons can be pests, but I couldn't kill a raccoon. I just couldn't do it. I know some people that could do it, but I couldn't. So what happens is the guy returns, and Jasmine basically hears him plead to see her because he needs to speak to her. So she's like, I need you to basically call the police. So he basically tells her, the app is connected probably only to see him because it's probably connected to some Wi-Fi and probably some basement dwelling hackers. And so he's saying, it might be an Aura prank. So she goes online to TechVig, which is basically a bootleg YouTube. So she's watching the video and she's reading about this assault. So basically there was a man who was doing Aura pranks, but he was assaulting people, but he got arrested. And she was like, it looks like the man that was arrested from what I did my research on. So what occurs is that we get a flashback of this man named Mr. Hendricks. And Mr. Hendricks was a school janitor at her high school. And they made fun of him. And the girls teased him. They would basically say oh, you look nice and everything. And he would take it literal. But they were making fun of him. But he started having a crush on Jaslyn. And what he would do is he would basically put candy in her locker, love notes inside her books, and polish her desk. So it started making her feel uncomfortable. And she's like, when he said it the third time when he came to the door, he's like, yo, my sweet Jaslyn. He's like, wait a minute. That's the man that used to say that. And so she was telling him Bryce, my sweet Jaslyn, come on now. It's gotta be him. So he's like, nobody's at the door. It's probably a prank. So he doubts her again. So then he's basically at this point, he's not really a supportive husband. So what we learn about it is that her name is Jaslyn Taylor. And Jaslyn Taylor goes to Mr. Hendricks' home. And she probably looked it up through the yellow pages. And so there's a lady that opens the door, and Jaslyn pretends to host a reunion for the Alumni Association, and she wants to invite Mr. Hendricks. And his sister's like, why you want to invite my brother? Even she's puzzled. She's like, I don't even fuck with my brother like that. He's not somebody that you may want to rock with. So she basically says, I wanted your brother to receive the invitation because the old staff and alumni is going to be there. And so she's like, listen, I don't even know where my brother's been. All I know is that Dale started living here right after he lost his job at the high school. But a couple of months ago, he took off and he disappeared without saying a word. And, since he's lived with me, he's never really been here when he's here. It's basically, the Rashida thing. I'm here, but I'm not here. Like that. So she basically asked her sister, do you have any photos of him that we could put in the book? So she's like, you could look through his bedroom. So she looks through the bedroom of pictures, and she looks through see the box, and it has a lot of old toy trinkets from the 1950s. And she opens it up, and she sees that is a photo that resembles the man at the door. And then she finds out that he's also a computer nut. So it's like, wait a minute, he's a computer nut. So she pretty much realizes that this is him. So she's like, I wonder why he wants to talk to me. So she opens the door, and she's like, basically he comes to the door and he was like, I want you to stop being afraid of me. Open the door. This is Dale. So she opens the door, but she doesn't see him. And that's because when she opens it, his spirit comes inside the house through the side door. So he thanks Jaslyn for letting him inside. And he's like, sorry, I lied to you. I'm not here to see you. I want more. And she's like, well, what do you want? Because she gets scared. And she was like, I wanted to say I'm sorry. And she's like, for what? For what I did to you all those years. I made you feel unsafe, uncomfortable. Yeah, because that was some pederast stuff, because she was a minor. And he was like, that's why I came to your home. And, I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I just want to tell you that I'm sorry. So she was like, listen, I wasn't the greatest. My friends made fun of you. And, I'm sorry about that. And maybe we could forgive each other. And so I'm like, hold up, Jasmine. Why you apologizing? You a victim because this man had a crush on you. God forbid he tried to jump you while you in the bathroom and he assaulted you. You didn't owe him an apology at all. Okay? It's not like you just made fun of him and he was being nice. He was crushing on you. Okay? So I didn't like that part when she apologized. But the apology did kind of help because he turned to dust and he basically moved on. So she's watching TV and there's an anchor man on the television news that announces that the missing case concludes with the man Dale Hendricks. So he had been missing for over 2 months and he has been discovered floating up the I-40 overpass, just south of the I-40 overpass. And he basically, chose to end it, if you get my drift. So she's basically like, wow, damn. And that's what he wanted to tell her. And he had to see her before he could go on. So Bryce is basically like, I'm finally getting a department in shape. And, little raccoon poison must have worked. And she jokes about him being a murderer. Now, this is when it takes a turn. She sees a woman at the door. And she's like, well, who are you? Because Jasmine don't know her. Never seen her before. And she's like, listen, I don't know how I got here, but something happened to me. I don't remember. But the last thing I remember was that I was at Grace Park. And I'm scared. I don't know where I am, but I do know something happened. So we see Bryce looking down at Jasmine's phone, and she basically rips off the aura from the door, and he basically throws it away, and he's like, it's another prank, and whatever basement killing fucking warranty, just get the security guards to come if there's another issue. And the way he reacted, it was really weird. And it was like, you're hiding something. So Jasmine's like, I need to investigate this because I know my situation with Dale Hendricks concluded. He moved on. But what's up with this girl who don't remember anything but Grace Park? So she visits Grace Park and she sees a bench with the name Mary Jean Burkett on it. And she pretty much types it, does her research, and she finds out that she lost her life due to a hit and run accident. The man was drunk, and the suspect basically was arrested and found, and he went to prison for 15 years. And so she mentions this to Bryce, and she's like, we gotta talk. And so he's like, why? And she's like, because the woman that came here, I did research. I went to Grace Park and I saw her. She's like, who is Mary Jean Burkett? He was like, I don't know. And so she basically's like, she did some research on the Aura chat room. Now, the theory is the new updated Aura chat room camera uses spontaneous parametric down conversion, which is a form of quantum entanglement. That's why they can detect light at only a few protons per pixel. Now, some people say that by punching into the quantum realm, these babies act as a magnet for the spirits, if you believe in ghosts. So the ghosts basically are electromagnetic fields, which is why hunters basically, when they hunt around, they use EMF detectors. And that's what basically the aura is. The aura is you attracting the spirits from the other side. It's like the breaking of the barrier. So they're coming. So Bryce dispels this whole thing. He's like, listen, I don't know what you're talking about. And he basically says, I lied to you about Dale. That's what she tells him. Dale just wanted an apology. So I let him in the home. And he moved on. And I apologize to him as well. But tell me, why does Mary Jane Burkett want to see you? She don't know me, and I never met her. So he denies knowing her. And he's like, listen, she's basically interrupting our lives, but she comes back. So she rings the bell, and she tells him, I put the aura back at the door. And he gets adamant. And she's like, so she lets him in. She lets her in, and he says she was my fiance. So we find out that he wanted to pretty much break things off. And it's funny when she tells him, because he doesn't want to, like, let her know. And she's like, who the fuck is Mary Jane Burkett? And it's the first time she acted like a black girl. So he was like, she was my fiance. So she got killed the night at the park when he was trying to break things off. So he was trying to break things off with Mary Jane Burkett. And according to him, she didn't want to take no for an answer. So while they were arguing, a car ran them over. So he was like, really, that's it? And he was like, yeah. So she lets Mary Jane Burkett in. And she's basically comes inside with an unborn baby. And she's like, listen, this is your son. And she's looking like, what the fuck? So then he said she was pregnant. And I couldn't let it happen. So he was trying to get her to have an abortion. And she didn't want it. So what happens is that he pushes her. But he gives the impression, like in the flashback, like he wasn't really trying to run her over. But when she does run over by the man who served 15 years, the man actually did not kill her. It was Bryce that killed her because he stepped on her neck, crushing her throat while she was saying, please help me, help me, help me. And he was like, it's going to be okay. I'm sorry. So he confesses, and he was like, it was a baby, Jazz, and I wasn't going to allow it. It wasn't in the plan. I wasn't going to allow it to be born. And now, neither are you. So he tries to kill Jaslyn. But honey, let me tell you something. Jaslyn says she's not here to forgive you. Unlike how Dale was here to forgive me. He picks up this stick that's, used for fireplaces. And as soon as he picks it up, you see her ring on her finger. Honey, Jaslyn twisted his neck, the inside of his larynx, crushed it like she was Queenie from Coven and from Hotel and from Apocalypse. Yes, she did, honey. And you can't tell me that she not Queenie cousin. And you can't tell me that she didn't even know Queenie. And you can't tell me that Jaslyn is not a witch. Because the one thing that gave it away was the jewelry making. Because if you remember, Queenie wore like a distinctive kind of jewelry that let her know that she was a witch. But Queenie was a good witch, though. She wasn't, like a dumb witch or an evil witch. And so what ended up happening was that she basically, goes on with her life, and she moves into an apartment. And the super is like, everything is set up, and we set up the aura. She was like, what? I didn't ask for that. He was like, listen, it comes with the fees when you move into the apartment. And it basically keeps the insurance rates down. So she's like, oh, a lot again. So on the app, she basically sees something that pops up. And it's like somebody's at the door. And Bryce shows up because he's now on the other side. And he want to talk to her. But he really want to kill her. And so he bangs on the door, and it ends with that. Now, I'm going to say this. I like this episode, but we got to keep it real. I felt that Jaslyn Taylor was being fetished by white men. And I think that it wasn't, to just, not. I think it was done on purpose to basically show you that. Why did Bryce marry Jaslyn? Because I don't think he was really into her. I think that, this is my theory. I think that Bryce married Jaslyn and moved her into that town so that eventually he could kill her. Probably for some insurance money. And in a weird way, maybe Dale coming there trying to, ask, say sorry, it really saved her life in the process, in the long term. Because let's say Mary Jean Burkett would have came. I don't think it would have ended as well as it did. But she knew how to handle it. But she had that gift of, I know how to crush the inside of your throat. I know how to kill you. Because she's a wicked. And that's, once again, the connection to all the other American Horror Stories shows. And I love AHS. I love it. But, yeah, it was a really good episode. It really was. It was really good. It was really good. I gotta say it. It was good. But I definitely, the fetishing I wasn't really cool with, but I understood it, because another thing is, why they didn't have a baby? How long were they married? And why did she look like she was in the 1980s when it was 2002? That was another thing. Maybe she wanted to stay in the 80s because it was a safe space, because her parents were around. Who knows? But I'm ending it there. With that being said, I'm signing off. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.